I didn't realize the same pickup truck had been following us for nearly 4 hours, until we stopped at a gas station in the middle of nowhere and the driver stepped out smiling like he already knew us. At the time, I told myself it was just coincidence. Highways are long, people travel the same routes. You see the same cars sometimes. But the more I think about that trip now, the more I realize how wrong I was. My name's Daniel, and this happened during a road trip I took with my girlfriend Emily 2 summers ago. We were driving from Arizona to Colorado because I had just landed a new job in Denver. It was the kind of opportunity one couldn't turn down: better pay, better company, and a chance for both of us to start somewhere new. Emily and I had been together for about 3 years at that point. She was the observant type, the kind of person who noticed little details most people ignored. I was the opposite. I liked to think I was practical, logical, the kind of person who didn't jump to conclusions. Looking back now, maybe I should have listened to her more that day. The drive had started out pretty normal. We left Phoenix early that morning with the car packed full of our stuff. Suitcases, boxes, a cooler full of snacks wedged in the back seat. Emily handled the music while I drove. The highway stretched out in front of us like a ribbon through the desert. Endless sand, dry hills, occasional gas stations that looked like they hadn't changed since the 80s. By mid-afternoon, we were deep into New Mexico. The traffic had thinned out a lot by then. Cars were few and far between. You'd see one every few minutes, maybe a truck hauling something across state lines. Otherwise, just miles of empty road. The sun was starting to dip lower in the sky when Emily first mentioned the truck. "Hey," she said casually, glancing in the side mirror. "That truck's been behind us for a while." I barely looked up from the road. "What truck?" "The dark pickup. Behind the white SUV." I checked my rearview mirror. Sure enough, there was an older pickup truck maybe 4 cars back. Dark blue or black. Hard to tell with the sunlight reflecting off it. "Probably just going the same direction," I said. Emily shrugged. "Yeah, probably." And for a while, that seemed like the most reasonable explanation. Another 30 minutes passed. We switched lanes to pass a slow-moving RV. A few moments later, Emily said quietly, "The truck changed lanes too." I glanced in the mirror again. Sure enough, the pickup was now in the same lane as us. Still a few cars back. Still following. "Still just coincidence," I said. Emily didn't answer right away. Instead, she kept watching the mirror. Eventually she said, "Maybe." We stopped about an hour later for gas. It was one of those small roadside stations with 2 pumps and a convenience store that sold mostly chips and beef jerky. I pulled up beside a pump and got out to fill the tank. Emily went inside to grab drinks. The desert air had cooled slightly, but the heat still lingered in the asphalt. While the pump clicked away, I stretched my legs and looked out across the empty highway. That's when I saw the pickup truck pull in. It rolled slowly into the lot and stopped 2 pumps over. The driver stayed inside. I didn't think much of it, until the driver's door opened. The man who stepped out looked to be in his mid-40s. Thin, sunburned skin. He wore a faded baseball cap and a wrinkled gray shirt. But what I noticed most was that he was staring directly at me. Not the gas pump, not the road. And he was smiling. Not a friendly smile either. The kind that lingers just a little too long. I gave a polite nod, the kind strangers exchange without saying anything. He didn't nod back. He just kept smiling. Eventually he turned and started pumping gas. Emily came back outside a minute later holding 2 bottles of water. As we got back into the car, she asked, "Did you see the truck?" "Yeah. I think it's the same one." I started the engine. Probably just another traveler. But as we pulled back onto the highway, the truck followed us out of the gas station. That's when Emily stopped talking. The sun disappeared completely about an hour later. Night fell quickly in the desert. Without streetlights or nearby towns, the highway became a dark tunnel stretching endlessly through black hills. Headlights were the only illumination. Occasionally another car would pass. But for long stretches, we were completely alone. Emily had been quiet for a while when she suddenly leaned forward. "It's still there." I checked the mirror. 2 headlights hovered in the darkness behind us. Far enough back to look normal, but close enough to feel intentional. "How long has it been?" she asked. "Since the gas station?" "Yeah, maybe 40 minutes. She didn't say anything after that, but I could feel the tension building in the car. Eventually the truck began closing the distance. Slowly, carefully, until it was only a few car lengths behind us. Then it pulled into the passing lane. For a moment the truck drove beside us, and I saw the driver again. The same man, the same thin face, the same unsettling smile. He turned his head slightly and looked straight at us through the window. Emily whispered, "Why is he smiling like that?" I didn't have an answer. After a few seconds the truck accelerated and moved ahead of us. For a brief moment I thought that was the end of it, but then the truck slowed down and waited for us to catch up. That's when the feeling in my stomach started to change. I drove another 15 minutes before deciding to try something. "There's an exit coming up," I said. "What for?" "I'm going to take it." Emily looked confused. "Why?" "Just to see something." We took the exit and turned onto a smaller road heading into a nearby town. The highway noise faded behind us. The road was narrow and poorly lit. I watched the mirror closely. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then headlights appeared behind us again. The same truck. Emily's voice was barely above a whisper. "Okay, that's not normal." I felt the same cold realization settling in. Someone was following us. We drove through the small town in silence. Most of the buildings were closed. A few dim lights glowed in storefront windows. Eventually we reached the other side of town and rejoined the highway. For about 10 minutes the truck stayed far behind. Then it started creeping closer again. Emily said quietly, "We should stop somewhere public." I nodded. "Yeah." About 15 miles later we saw a small roadside motel. The kind with a glowing neon sign that flickers slightly. Vacancy. It looked old, but it looked safe enough. I pulled into the parking lot and parked near the office. The truck drove past slowly. Neither of us said anything as we watched it continue down the road. For a moment I felt relief. Maybe we'd finally lost him. But then the truck slowed. It turned around and drove back into the motel parking lot. My stomach dropped. The truck rolled to a stop near the entrance. The man stepped out again. Instead of walking toward us, he headed straight into the motel office. Emily looked at me. "Why would he do that?" "I don't know." A few minutes later the office door opened again. But it wasn't the man who came out. It was the motel clerk. He walked slowly toward our car and knocked on the window. I rolled it down halfway. The man looked nervous. "Are you two traveling with the gentleman who just came inside?" Emily answered immediately. "No." The clerk's face went pale. "He asked me for your room number." My heart skipped. "What?" "He said he was meeting you here." I felt the blood drain from my face. "We don't know him." The clerk looked over his shoulder toward the motel rooms. Then he leaned closer to the window. "You might want to leave." Emily turned to look, and that's when we saw him, standing outside the door of one of the rooms, watching us, still smiling. That was enough for me. I started the car immediately. Emily grabbed her bag and we drove out of the parking lot as fast as possible. In the mirror I saw the man running toward his truck. For the next hour I drove faster than I probably should have. Every pair of headlights behind us made my chest tighten. But the pickup truck never appeared again. Eventually we reached a large highway rest stop full of cars and people. Bright lights. Families. Truck drivers. Safety. We stayed there for almost an hour before continuing the drive. Neither of us talked much after that. 2 days later, after we arrived in Denver, Emily was scrolling through her phone when she suddenly froze. "Daniel," she said quietly, "look at this." She turned the screen toward me. It was a news article. A man had been arrested in Texas during a traffic stop. Police suspected him in multiple disappearances involving travelers on remote highways. The photo below the article showed the suspect's mugshot. Same thin face, same baseball cap, and the same unsettling smile. The man who had followed us across 3 states. Our GPS told us to take a shortcut through the mountains, and it led us to a road that didn't appear on any map. At the time, it seemed like a harmless suggestion. A faster route. 20 minutes saved. But if I had known where that road would take us, I would have kept driving on the highway without even thinking twice. My name is Sarah, and this happened during a road trip I took with my older brother Mark. It was the middle of summer, and we were driving from California to Oregon to visit some relatives we hadn't seen in years. Mark had always loved road trips. He was the adventurous type. The kind of person who would take random detours just to see what was out there. I was the opposite. I preferred plans, clear directions, normal roads. But Mark had insisted on driving, and after a few hours in the passenger seat, I had mostly given up trying to control the route. By the time this happened, the sun had already started to set. We had been driving through Northern California for most of the afternoon. The landscape had slowly changed from dry hills to dense forest. Tall pine trees lined both sides of the highway. The air outside looked darker, cooler. The road curved gently through the mountains. Mark glanced at the GPS screen mounted on the dashboard. "Hey," he said casually. "What?" "It says there's a faster route." I looked over. The map showed a small road branching off the highway ahead. "This saves about 20 minutes, he said. I frowned. "Are you sure that road's okay?" "It's on the GPS. That doesn't mean it's good." He laughed. "Relax. It'll be fine." A few minutes later, we turned onto the road. At first it looked completely normal. 2 lanes, smooth pavement, trees stretching endlessly into the distance. But within 10 minutes, things started to feel different. The first thing I noticed was the silence. No other cars. None at all. The highway had occasional traffic, but this road felt abandoned. The trees grew thicker as we drove deeper into the mountains. Their branches formed dark shapes overhead. Even the sky seemed to disappear. "Have you seen another car yet?" I asked. Mark shook his head. "Nope." The road began to narrow. Then the pavement changed. The smooth asphalt slowly turned rough. Eventually it became gravel. Small rocks popped under the tires. "That's weird," I said. Mark shrugged. "Probably just a rural road." I checked my phone. No signal. Not even one bar. The GPS screen flickered slightly. The map icon jumped a few feet to the side of the road, then corrected itself. "That's comforting," I muttered. Mark laughed again. "You worry too much." But a few minutes later, something caught my attention. A car, parked on the side of the road. It looked old. An abandoned sedan coated in dust and leaves. Its windows were dark. No lights. No movement. "Did you see that?" I asked. "Yeah." "Why would someone leave a car out here?" Mark didn't answer. We drove past it slowly. A mile later, we saw another one. This one was an SUV. Also abandoned. Also covered in dust. I felt a small knot forming in my stomach. "That's 2, I said. "Probably broken down," Mark replied. But his voice sounded less confident. As we continued driving, the forest around us grew darker. The road twisted deeper into the mountains. Then I noticed something else. Lights. Small points of light flickering between the trees far off in the forest. At first I thought they were houses, but something about them looked wrong. They moved slowly, like someone walking with flashlights. "Mark." "What?" "There are lights out there." He slowed the car slightly and looked into the woods. "I see them." "How many?" 3, maybe 4. They disappeared behind the trees as we continued driving. Neither of us said anything for a while after that. The gravel road kept winding through the forest. And then we saw them. People. Standing between the trees along the roadside. At first I thought they were hikers, but they weren't moving. They were just standing there, watching the car pass. One figure, then another, then another. Their faces were hard to see in the fading light, but I could feel their eyes on us. "Mark," I whispered, "I see them. Why are they just standing there?" "I don't know." None of them waved. None of them spoke. They simply watched, as if they had been waiting. We passed at least 5 of them in less than a mile, every single one standing perfectly still. My chest felt tight. "This road feels wrong," I said. "Yeah." For once, Mark didn't argue. We kept driving. The trees grew denser. The road narrowed even further. And then suddenly it ended. The gravel path opened into a clearing. In the center of the clearing burned a large fire. Around it stood a group of people, maybe 6 or 7. They all turned the moment our headlights illuminated the clearing. Every single one of them stared at us. No one spoke. No one moved. Then one person slowly began walking toward the car. Mark whispered, "Nope." He immediately threw the car into reverse. The engine roared as we backed up, but after only a few seconds, he stopped. "Sarah?" "What?" "There's a car behind us." My heart dropped. Another vehicle had pulled onto the road behind us, blocking the only way out. 2 figures stepped out of that car, both holding flashlights. The beams cut through the darkness as they began walking toward us. My pulse was pounding so loudly I could hear it. "Mark," I said quickly, "just drive." "I can't, they're blocking." "Drive." Mark slammed the gas pedal. The car lurched backward and swerved past the blocking vehicle, narrowly missing one of the people standing beside it. Someone shouted behind us. I heard the sound of footsteps, but Mark didn't slow down. He sped down the gravel road as fast as the car could handle. Rocks sprayed behind us. Branches scraped the sides of the vehicle. Neither of us spoke. We just kept going. For nearly an hour. Eventually the gravel turned back into pavement. The trees began thinning. Then suddenly we were back on the highway. Bright road signs. Passing cars. Civilization. Mark slowed down slightly, his hands still gripping the steering wheel tightly. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally I looked down at my phone. Signal. Full bars. The GPS screen looked normal again. The map showed us back on the main route. What the hell was that road? I asked. Mark shook his head slowly. I have no idea. Later that night, after we reached our hotel, curiosity got the better of me. I opened Google Maps and tried to find the road we had taken. I traced our route backward from the highway, but the road wasn't there. Not even a small trail. Nothing. Just solid forest. I tried several different map apps. Same result every time. The road didn't exist. Months later, the memory still bothered me. So one night I opened Google Earth and searched the area again. This time I zoomed in closer, deep into the forest where we had turned. Eventually I found something. A small clearing hidden among the trees. When I zoomed in further, I felt a chill run through me. Scattered across that clearing were dozens of vehicles. Old cars, trucks, SUVs, all abandoned, all sitting there in the middle of the forest, like they had never left. We never picked up a hitchhiker that night, but somehow someone ended up sitting in the back seat. I still replay that moment in my head sometimes, trying to figure out if there was some explanation I missed, some detail I overlooked. But no matter how many times I think about it, nothing makes sense. My name is Jake, and this happened during a weekend road trip my friends and I took to Las Vegas a few years ago. There were 3 of us in the car that night. My friend Tyler, and our other friend Chris. Tyler had the idea for the trip. He'd just gotten a bonus from work and wanted to celebrate. Vegas weekend, he said. No planning. Just go. Chris was immediately on board. I agreed mostly because I hadn't taken a break from work in months. So late Friday night we packed into my car and started the drive across the Nevada desert. If you've never driven through that part of the country at night, It's hard to describe how empty it feels. Miles and miles of open desert. No houses. No towns. Just long stretches of highway disappearing into darkness. The only light comes from your headlights and the occasional passing truck. It was around 2:30 in the morning when things started getting strange. Tyler was in the passenger seat scrolling through his phone. Chris was in the back half asleep. I was focused on the road. The highway stretched straight ahead like a black ribbon through the desert. Then suddenly Tyler sat up. "Hey," he said. "What?" "There's a guy up there." About 100 yards ahead, standing on the shoulder of the road, was a man. He was waving his arms, trying to flag us down. As we got closer, I could see he looked dirty. His clothes were dusty, like he'd been walking for a long time. Tyler leaned forward slightly. Maybe his car broke down. "Maybe," I said. Chris stirred in the back seat. "What's going on?" "There's a hitchhiker," Tyler told him. Chris looked out the window. "Oh man, are we stopping?" I slowed the car slightly as we approached. The man stepped closer to the edge of the road, still waving, but something about the situation didn't sit right with me. The desert was completely empty. No car nearby. No lights. Nothing. Just this one man standing alone in the darkness. Tyler said, "We should help him." I shook my head. "Not out here. What if he's stranded? Then he can flag down the next car." Chris leaned forward between the seats. "Yeah, this is how horror movies start." Tyler laughed. "Relax. It's just a guy." But by then we were already passing him. As our headlights illuminated his face, I caught a quick glimpse of his expression. He wasn't angry. He wasn't desperate. He was just watching us. The car passed him, and the darkness swallowed him again. A few seconds later, Chris chuckled. "Watch him show up in the back seat." Tyler laughed. "Don't even say that." I smirked. "Yeah, let's not start that kind of paranoia." The road stretched ahead of us again. Empty. Quiet. For the next 30 minutes, nothing happened. Tyler put on some music. Chris fell asleep again. The desert rolled past in silence. Then I heard something. A soft sound. Behind me. Like fabric shifting. At first I thought Chris had moved in his seat. But when I glanced in the mirror, Chris was still leaning against the window. The sound came again. A faint movement. Chris suddenly lifted his head. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" Tyler asked. Chris slowly turned around in his seat. And then he froze. His entire body went rigid. "What?" Tyler asked. Chris didn't answer. He just kept staring. Then he said something very quietly. "Jake." "What?" "There's someone in the back seat." A chill ran down my spine. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." I glanced quickly in the rearview mirror, and my heart nearly stopped. There was someone sitting in the seat behind Tyler, a figure leaning slightly forward in the shadows. A man. Tyler turned around slowly. The same man we had passed on the side of the road, sitting in the back seat. No one had opened a door. No one had stopped the car. But he was there, just sitting quietly, watching us. Tyler's voice cracked. "How did you?" The man slowly leaned forward between the seats. His face came into the glow of the dashboard lights. Expressionless. In a soft voice he said, "You should have stopped earlier." For a moment no one moved. No one spoke. Then instinct took over. I slammed the brakes. The tires screeched against the asphalt as the car skidded to a stop in the middle of the highway. Everyone jerked forward slightly. Tyler twisted around in his seat. The back seat was empty. Completely empty. Chris scrambled out of the car immediately. Where did he go? Tyler opened his door too. We searched the back seat, the trunk, the ground around the car. Nothing. No footprints. No movement. Just empty desert stretching in every direction. Chris kept shaking his head. That's impossible. Tyler checked the back door handles. Still locked. All 4 doors were locked. None of them had opened. I stood there staring into the darkness for a long moment. Finally I said, "Get back in the car." None of us wanted to stay out there any longer. The rest of the drive to Las Vegas was completely silent. No music, no jokes, just the hum of the engine and the endless road ahead. We arrived at our hotel just before sunrise. Chris and Tyler went straight to their rooms. I stayed in the parking garage for a moment, sitting in the driver's seat, trying to process what had happened. Eventually I grabbed my bag and got out. The next morning, before we left for breakfast, I went back down to the car. I opened the back door. The seat looked exactly the same as the night before. Empty, normal. But then I noticed something on the floor. A mark, a footprint, mud-covered, leading from the back seat toward the passenger door. And the thing about that footprint is that we hadn't driven through mud for hundreds of miles. If you enjoyed these road trip horror stories and want to hear more real terrifying experiences like these, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which story disturbed you the most. And if you're ever driving alone late at night, and you notice the same car following you for miles, or a strange road your GPS insists you should take, or someone waving for help on a completely empty highway, just remember one thing. Sometimes the scariest part of a road trip is realizing you're not as alone on the road as you thought.